quý vị và các bạn thân mến, ngay lúc này chúng tôi đang có mặt tại Audio Sơn Hà và ngay bên cạnh Thu Hà lúc này đây đang là sự hiện diện đến từ Mr. Bjorn, đại diện từ phía Nordost. Cùng với đó là sự hiện diện đến từ chị Thanh Hà, đại diện của Audio Sơn Hà. So the first, Mr. Bjorn, please say something with the audience and also that introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, as you said, my name is Bjorn. I work for Nordost, the American company, and we specialize in high-end audio cabling, and we also do some dedicated accessories in terms of distribution block. And now we have a switch coming out. So we consider ourselves to be a bit of an expertise in getting rid of noise.
Yeah. Thưa quý vị, và ngày hôm nay thì với những trải nghiệm chân thực nhất cũng như là với nhiều năm kinh nghiệm của ông Bjorn thì ông ấy sẽ cùng đến với một hệ thống âm thanh tại phòng nghe của Audio Sơn Hà và cho ra những cái trải nghiệm, những cái đánh giá chân thực nhất cũng như là mình sẽ có cái sự cân chỉnh làm sao để hệ thống ở đây trở nên hoàn hảo hơn ạ. So, Mr. Bjorn, with your experience, a long time experience, and also your real feeling right now, please enjoy the listening room.
Absolutely. I'll have a look. I'll have a listen, and we'll see if there are some just minor fine-tuning things I might be able to contribute with.
Bjorn thân mến, sau khi mà được tham quan trải nghiệm một vòng showroom Audio Sơn Hà rồi thì không biết là ông cảm nhận ra sao về nơi này ạ? Mr. Bjorn, after you have a look all around the showroom, how did you feel about Audio Sơn Hà?
Oh, I am delighted. It's an honor to be in such a well-managed hi-fi store with a representation of so many brands and really well laid out in all the rooms here. I really appreciate being here. Thank you very much for being invited.
Xin chào ông Bjorn. Rất hân hạnh được hôm nay được gặp ông tại showroom Audio Sơn Hà. Rất hãnh diện được ông tới thăm và training cho những cái sản phẩm chúng tôi đang cung cấp cho bên ông là thương hiệu Nordost. Rất là hãnh diện.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll do my best. I can see that you are already at a very high level of knowledge here, so with the little that I can contribute with.
Thưa quý vị, và sau khi trải nghiệm về hệ thống âm thanh tại phòng nghe tại Audio Sơn Hà thì ngay lúc này Thu Hà sẽ mời Mr. Bjorn cùng chia sẻ chi tiết hơn về cảm nhận của ông ấy ạ. Mr. Bjorn, please tell me your first impression and also that tell me about your feeling about the music in the listening room or the system.
Oh, I'm very impressed. This is a very well set up system. It's very well composed. I really do appreciate the efforts that has been made, and also somebody has been educating you very well in order to lay out the cables. It's nice and tidy here. That's very good. I'm very pleased to see how that is working. It actually means quite a lot, more than you would think, to be very thorough when cabling up a system, to be thorough with where does the power go, where does the interconnects go, where do the speaker cable go. And you've done a really nice layout of that. Very good. There are a couple of things in this that I'd like to point out, because I totally understand it is difficult to set up a system and think of every little detail, and to a degree that's why I'm here, so I can point out a couple of the things in this system. One, I noticed that you already from the beginning noticed, because you changed the main power cord. We advocate a coherent loom philosophy. That means that we believe in synergy effects, and certainly when it comes to our brand, that you should use Nordost preferably on every place, in every stage, but also especially for the power chords. power chords is something that we have been pioneers in. More than 25 years of experience with power chords, and they do make such a significant improvement and difference. So I strongly recommend to use only Nordost in that. So that was a very good thing to change the main power chord from something else to another Nordost power chord. I also noticed that when you did that, you changed to identical power chords on the monoblocks. Also very good. Speaking of that, I'd like to make a suggestion in a system like this. I noticed that you use N-Trek as grounding devices. They do a very good job, so don't think of me trying to say that our Q core should be replacing all the N-Trek. But there is one thing that we do very well, and if you use a Q core 3 or a Q core 6, you can use that for the monoblocks to have the monoblocks share a common ground, which will make the monoblocks work even better as one. Because the whole foundation of stereo is to have two to act like one. And if you have the two separate monoblocks working with one Q core, they will have the same common ground. So they will work even better, have an even better synergy together. So that is one of the suggestions I would like to make into this system. I mean, you're very well aware of the benefits of grounding. So I'm sure you will appreciate that. Another thing that I noticed is on the back here, for the Q bass, the primary earth socket, the socket here that is labeled.
Sit down, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to ruin things. The socket that is labeled primary earth is being used. I think it is a clock. Yeah. So the primary earth should go to the component that has the most connections. In almost every case, it is the preamp. And that is also that has to do with grounding. The Q-Bass has a unique way of grounding so that we can direct small potentials on the ground to one point instead of having that floating from different devices. So that is the one socket in the Q-Bass that one needs to take care of where it is. And it almost always goes into the preamp. So that is one thing that I would suggest to change, to have the preamp in the primary earth. The other sockets are theoretically the same. So in theory, it doesn't really matter. Looking at the system here, I noticed that we have a streamer. And also we got a router, and there is a switch somewhere. And I would like to use the opportunity to have a little speech about our latest product. We call it QNET, and it is a dedicated audiophile switch that we have manufactured. We have designed it from scratch, from the built up. I'd like to use the opportunity to introduce a QNET. Any system, high-end system with a streamer will really benefit from our design, our switch design. This is a product that has been made by audiophiles for audiophiles. And there are a few design features on this that you will not find in any other manufacturer, any other switch manufacturer out there. Because we do everything in-house. We even do the circuitry board. And the thing here is that we don't use off-the-shelf solution, which is what pretty much everybody else is doing. So we have designed this and been looking into what creates noise, how we can get rid of it, and put all that knowledge into this audiophile switch, where we do a very wide spread of the connectors, so they're not side by side on a panel mount. We have independent, individual linear power supplies built in here in the DC domain. We have made our own circuitry board. It's a 6-layer design where we can keep track of what is ground, what is signal, what is power. And we also have a very, very precise oscillator. And you might think, yeah, well, there are switches out there with oscillators. Yeah, but this has a big difference, because everybody else will use off-the-shelf solutions, and when they introduce an oscillator, they have to put the oscillator on a separate circuitry board and connect it with wires. That defeats the whole purpose of the oscillator. In our world, it is just next to the main IC on the same circuitry board, and it's being fed with its own linear power supply inside. So this unit I would absolutely recommend for any high-end system. Important to keep in mind, even though it looks the same, there is a bottom and there is a top. Linear power supply generates some heat, thus ventilation. Ventilation needs to be up, not down.
Yes.
Yeah, and not obstructed. So don't place anything on top of it, because that would obstruct the ventilation. And for the person who is very keen into details, they will notice this particular DC inlet. The QNET comes as a plug-and-play product, so it's ready to use from the box, because in the box there is a switch mode power supply. But if you want to take even this product to the next level, we also have an AC linear power supply that has variable voltage settings on the bottom for 2 outputs. And one of the outputs can be dedicated for the QNET. And we have a spare with variable voltages. And we also have 4 5-volt, which is another product from us that we call Q-point. The Q-point is meant to be in those 5-volt inputs. And that could also elevate the performance of this system by introducing Q-point. But that's a bit of a lengthy process, because you need trial and error. You need to try where they should be positioned. And the Q source, of course, also have the grounding, the dedicated grounding. So if it is not being used with a Q base, you can have its own parallel grounding system with an NTREC, or preferably with Q core.
Như vậy là sau khi mà được ông Bjorn tư vấn cũng như là cân chỉnh lại thiết bị, thì mình cũng đã được lắng nghe lại một bầu không khí âm nhạc tại đây rồi. Chị có thể cho em một chút cái cảm nhận là mình nghe nhạc mình cảm thấy là sao không thưa chị?
Rất là cảm ơn ông Bjorn. Tôi sau khi được trải nghiệm những cái hệ thống mà ngay từ ban đầu, và được ông nâng cấp lên thêm một số những cái phụ kiện và những cái thiết bị của Nordost, cảm giác là nghe nó sẽ bung lụa ra và rất là hay hơn rất nhiều, mà cái đều trải nghiệm được rất là mới mẻ, rất hay. hay hơn như lúc trước.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bjorn. After you upgrade and you change something, she feel that everything is new, more new and chill and enjoy. Yes.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear and glad that I could be of help. It's a pleasure. What we do and what we firmly believe in at Nordost is to create a foundation. And once the foundation is perfect, then it's much easier to evaluate the quality of the electronics, the speakers, and also the positioning and working with room acoustics and so on. So it actually really starts with a good foundation, and that's what we're very good with.
Còn đối với Thu Hà thì Thu Hà rất là may mắn khi mà được hoạt động trong lĩnh vực MC, thì được hoạt động ở nhiều sân khấu khác nhau. Và ngày hôm nay khi mà đứng ở đây và được nghe hệ thống âm thanh khi mà cân chỉnh lại rồi thì cảm giác nó sinh động hơn, nghe nó có vẻ như rộng lớn hơn và giống như là một cái âm thanh sân khấu nó hoàn thiện hơn ạ. Thưa quý vị, như vậy là mình vừa có được một buổi trải nghiệm vô cùng ý nghĩa và chân thực tại Audio Sơn Hà, nơi mà có đại diện từ phía Nordost là Mr. Bjorn đã cùng đến đây để cùng chia sẻ và tư vấn thêm những cái cân chỉnh hệ thống âm thanh của mình. Và hy vọng là trong tương lai thì quý vị sẽ còn có thêm nhiều trải nghiệm sinh động hơn nữa bằng cách là quý vị đến trực tiếp cùng với Audio Sơn Hà quý vị nhé.